Does everyone know what 5G is? I hope you do, because everyone has a different view of 5G to what I think is the reality of 5G. The major differences between 5G and 4G are only two real differences. It's not about smartphones. If you wanted faster smartphones, we can do that in 4G, no problem. It's about two things. One is the ability to connect thousands or millions of devices, not just smartphones. And the second is very, very low latency that we can't achieve in 4G to enable things such as connected cars. So that's the real two differences of 5G. And I think that 5G will be the connecting fabric of the smart city. So that's why we have a lot of focus on what we do with 5G in our business now. So I'll tell you a little bit about the focus that we have on 5G, the challenges and solutions for the smart city, and the role of us as operators in this new value chain. So coming back, I don't know whether anybody's seen this, but this is one of the slides from the government's consultancy project on smart cities. And so we use this as a bit of a template to see where we should be as a telco playing in all of this. And so when we look at smart government, we look at the smart city infrastructure. And then when we look at smart mobility, we start to look at intelligent transport systems and traffic management. Why is smart mobility so important? Well, in most of the world, only a proportion of the population lives in the urban areas, and that's expected to reach about 67% by 2050. But when we look at Hong Kong, our urban population has been 100% since 2015. So there's lots of reasons why we want to be involved in smart mobility in what we do. I'm sorry, but the texts have changed a little bit here. I think from what I can see, the fonts have changed a little bit. Never mind. So what we're looking at, I think when you look at the smart city, in general, I think most of the focus for the smart city will be, over the next 5, maybe even 10 years, to do with congestion management, whether it's traffic management, parking management, energy management, communications management. It'll all be around congestion management. And we have to look at what we as a telco can do to facilitate that. So when it comes to smart mobility, you can't really have a smart city without smart mobility. And congestion management will require a lot of the smart mobility capabilities. No smart mobility is possible without the smart infrastructure, so we're concentrating on building the smart infrastructure. And over the years, we're fortunate that we've been able to develop a very, very highly connected Hong Kong through all the different generations of cellular technology, all the other types of wireless technology. But of course, 5G is the technology which is kind of going to bring all of that together and harmonize the way we communicate. And so we have to build the various layers of this smart city connectivity throughout Hong Kong, both indoors and outdoors. So our major focus, when you look at all of the applications that people talk about for 5G, a lot of it revolves around manufacturing, the fourth industrial revolution. Well, long gone is the days when Hong Kong was the center of manufacturing, so we don't have much of that to focus on. Similarly, agriculture is another area where 5G is seen to have a big opportunity, but again, we don't have much opportunity for that in Hong Kong. So our real focus for us as a telco is areas where we can really help with the congestion management in Hong Kong to do with smart parking, smart mobility, intelligent transportation. So one of the areas that we've been doing, and here's an example, is for off-street parking, putting in place lots of smart mobility in terms of finding an empty car park space, booking it, and using the car park spaces. That's one example of smart mobility. Another is a contract we recently won with the Transport Department to replace all of the thousands of parking meters around Hong Kong with smart parking meters to help people to be able to find parking slots and park their cars and pay for them in an easy manner, seamless manner. But lastly, and the thing that I think we can make the biggest difference is when we start to look at cars talking to anything, talking to traffic lights, talking to other cars, knowing where the dangers are in Hong Kong when people are driving, and using the smart connectivity to be able to stop cars from going through traffic lights when they're going to change to red. And obviously, this can only be done if the cars can talk to each other very, very quickly. And that's only achievable. What we call low latency connectivity is only achievable with 5G. But in all of these applications for the car, I think you have to recognize that you start to look at all of the accidents that take place, and we've been cataloging the accidents that take place in Hong Kong, and there's lots of them. And if we do the statistics, and if we can reduce these accidents by using connected car assisted driving technologies by 50%, then we can probably save 2 hospitals in Hong Kong. That's what the statistics show in terms of vehicle accidents putting people in hospital. But that all comes with its challenges. So just to tell you a little bit about one of the things we have to do as a telco to be able to facilitate this connectivity, I'll take you through some of the challenges that we have. 5G is not really any more efficient in its use of spectrum than 4G. If you want to have more megabits per second through your devices, you need to have more spectrum allocated. And the government has just been going through a process of licensing new spectrum for 5G. But as my old boss used to say, you can never have too much spectrum. So we keep trying to get more. Unfortunately, many of the 5G spectrum is used by satellite providers. So at the moment, we do have to manage that, and there are some exclusion zones in Hong Kong that we have to deal with. We hope they will get smaller as people get to understand the difference between the spectrum that's coming down from the sky and the spectrum that we use on the land to make sure that we can avoid any interference. But that's a challenge for us as we move towards 5G. And some areas may not be able to have the same spectrum used around Hong Kong as we'd like to. Secondly is what we call the coexistence of TDD networks. In the old days, the operator's spectrum was separated by a small amount of what we call a gap or a safety zone between the two spectrums. Now they're very much closer together because we need to use as much of that spectrum as we possibly can, and therefore we have to do a lot more synchronization, and that will require a lot of assistance from the regulators to make sure that we as operators work closely together so we don't get interference between each other. Similarly, we have to look at the densification of the network. We will go from something like 3,000 base stations in Hong Kong for our cellular network to 30,000 base stations for 5G. That's a massive increase in density of those networks. So we have to do that. And don't forget that every one of them has to be connected with fiber. So we'll be doing an experiment shortly where we'll be putting our base stations on traffic light, on lampposts, and doing trials in Hong Kong. A lot of our traffic in Hong Kong is indoors. 81% of the traffic is indoors, yet the sites are outdoors. So that's going to require us to put a lot of base stations indoors instead of outdoors, and that will require a lot of work too. And our first one is to put some into the new MTR system, the new rail line, the Sha Tin to Central link, which will be a system which will allow operators to share each other's network. And so we're already about 3% completed by the way we've been fitting out a lot of the buildings ready for 5G, as you can see there. I'm running out of time here, so I'll just say that some of the other challenges are to do with security of 5G, because if two cars are driving side by side, we're worried about the fact that someone could have malicious code and drop some malicious code into a car as they go past. So there's a lot of security aspects to deal with 5G too. And then, of course, energy saving. The more base stations we build, the more energy it's going to create, and the more we have to do to reduce energy of those base stations. And I've just been told I'm running out of time, so I'll skip through the last bit to the last slide. and to say that we look forward to working with lots of solution providers, because connectivity is only one part of the whole of the smart city. We're looking at how we can work with industry-specific solutions providers to add value to the connectivity and to produce the solutions that 5G can offer in a smart city. So thank you.